The meeting room was silent except for the quiet hum of the environmental systems. Ambassador Thel Nara stood at the center of the massive chamber, her skin shifting through colors that showed her distress. Around her, representatives from 11 different species watched with growing concern. The holographic display showed another star system going dark, the fifth one this month. The red marks on the galactic map were spreading like a disease, moving closer to the heart of Council space with each passing week. They took the Kelvis colonies in 3 days, Thelnara said, her voice tight. 4 billion souls. We received their distress calls, but by the time our fleet arrived there was nothing left but debris. A delegate from the Mindari spoke next, his telepathic voice echoing in everyone's minds. Our military analysts have reviewed every battle. The Krell adapt to our tactics within hours. They learn from every engagement. Our forces cannot match their aggression. The word hung in the air like poison. Aggression. It was not a concept the Galactic Council understood well. For 3 centuries, the Alliance had maintained peace through diplomacy and mutual cooperation. Wars were rare, brief, and quickly resolved through negotiation. The Council's military existed mainly for border patrol and disaster relief. The Krell swarm did not negotiate. They did not communicate beyond simple demands for surrender. They simply consumed everything in their path, their bioengineered warriors tearing through defensive lines with brutal efficiency. We need help, Thelnara finally said. We need allies who understand warfare in ways we do not. An uncomfortable silence followed. Everyone knew what she was suggesting, but no one wanted to be the first to say it. Finally, Councillor Vex of the Arconian Empire spoke. His species were the oldest in the Council, their civilization spanning 10,000 years. You want to contact the humans. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They have been requesting council membership for 15 years. Thelnara said carefully. We have denied them every time. Perhaps it is time to reconsider. You know why they were denied, Vex responded. We have all seen their history. We have all reviewed the cultural assessments. Indeed, they had. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel and made contact with Council scouts, the initial response had been excitement. A new species, young and energetic with impressive technological progress. But then the Council observers began their standard cultural evaluation. What they found disturbed them deeply. Human history was an unbroken chain of warfare stretching back thousands of years. Humans fought over resources, territory, ideology, and religion. They fought each other and they fought their own planet's harsh environment. Their art glorified warriors. Their entertainment simulated combat. Their literature celebrated violence as often as it condemned it. Most troubling was humanity's capacity for organization and efficiency in warfare. They studied battle as a science. They trained their soldiers with methods refined over millennia of conflict. They created weapons with a level of sophistication that suggested deep familiarity with the art of killing. The Council had quietly shelved humanity's membership application. Better to keep such a dangerous species at arm's length, they reasoned. Let them develop in isolation, perhaps mature beyond their violent tendencies. Now facing extinction, those same qualities looked different. We need warriors, the Mindari delegate said quietly. We have no choice. Our civilian populations are dying. Our fleets are being destroyed. We need someone who can fight the Krell on equal terms. The vote was called. It passed with a narrow majority. The Council would formally request military aid from Earth. Kyle Mitchell was reviewing supply reports when the priority message came through. He had been expecting it for weeks. Everyone in the Earth Defense Fleet had been following the news from Council space. The Krell invasion was the biggest story in human media. He opened the encrypted file and read it twice to make sure he understood correctly. Then he walked down the corridor to Admiral Patricia Hughes's office. You've seen it? Patricia asked as he entered. Yes, ma'am. What do you think? Kyle sat down, gathering his thoughts. I think they're desperate. They kept us isolated for 15 years because we scared them. Now they want us to save them using the exact qualities that made them afraid. Patricia nodded slowly. The UN Security Council is meeting right now. The decision is basically made, though. We're going to help. Good. You sound certain? I am, Kyle said. They judged us for our history without understanding it. Yes, humanity has fought countless wars. Yes, we're good at violence. But we also developed rules about warfare. We created concepts like proportional response and protection of civilians. We learned through terrible experience that winning a battle means nothing if you lose your humanity in the process. Patricia studied him for a moment. You want to lead the expeditionary force? I do. It will be dangerous. The Krell have destroyed fleets that outnumbered them 3-1. Then it's a good thing we're sending humans. The approval came through within hours. Kyle was given command of the EDF Valiant, a heavy cruiser designed specifically for extended operations far from Earth. 3 other warships would accompany them: the Relentless, the Havoc, and the Ironclad. Kyle spent the next week reviewing personnel files and preparing his crew. His second in command was Lieutenant Sophie Brooks, a tactical officer with a brilliant mind for 3-dimensional combat. Captain Greg Newman commanded the Relentless and would serve as wing commander for the small fleet. On the day of departure, Kyle stood on the bridge of the Valiant and looked at the faces of his crew. They were young, most of them, barely out of training. But they were volunteers, every single one. They knew the risks. They knew they might not come home. We've been given a mission, Kyle told them. The Galactic Council needs help stopping an enemy that's threatening to wipe out billions of lives. They asked Earth for assistance because they believe we're good at fighting. They're right, we are. But that's not why we're going. He paused, making sure he had everyone's attention. We're going because people need help. We're going because it's the right thing to do. And we're going to show the galaxy that humanity isn't just good at fighting. We're good at protecting. There's a difference. Remember that difference and we'll all come home. The Valiant's engines powered up. The massive ship detached from Luna Station and began accelerating toward the edge of the solar system. Behind it, the other 3 warships fell into formation. In the observation lounge, several crew members watched Earth shrink behind them. A young ensign named Danny Price turned to his companion. Do you think we can really make a difference out there? His friend, an engineer named Rachel Stone, shrugged. The council thinks so. They're scared of us, but they still asked for help. That says something. It says they're desperate. Maybe. Or maybe it says they finally realize that being good at something dangerous doesn't make you a monster. It makes you someone who can protect others when things get bad. The fleet reached the jump point and engaged their faster-than-light drives. In a flash of twisted space, they vanished from the solar system, heading toward a war that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that its children were about to teach the galaxy a lesson about monsters and what they could choose to become. The transition from faster-than-light travel always made Kyle's stomach twist, but he had learned to hide it years ago. The Valiant dropped back into normal space at the edge of what the Council called the contested zone. Through the bridge viewport, he could see the gathered defense fleet. That's their military? Sophie Brooks asked from the tactical station, her voice careful to show no judgment. Kyle understood her surprise. The Council ships were beautiful in an artistic way. Sweeping curves, elegant lines, hulls that shimmered with decorative patterns. They looked like sculptures that happened to move through space. They're built by cultures that haven't fought a real war in generations, Kyle said quietly. Form became more important than function. Captain Greg Newman's face appeared on the communication screen. His ship, the Relentless, had taken up position to the Valiant's left. Commander, I'm seeing exposed reactor cores on at least 6 of those vessels. No overlapping fire zones. Minimal armor plating. This is going to be a massacre if the Krell hit them hard. Then we make sure the Krell hit us instead, Kyle replied. A hologram materialized on the bridge. It showed a crystalline being, light refraction creating rainbow patterns across its surface. Commander Mitchell, I am Zekthar, your liaison to the Council forces. Welcome to the Defense Fleet, Kyle nodded. Thank you. We're ready to coordinate with your battle plans. Zekthar's light patterns shifted in what might have been confusion. Battle plans? We respond to Krell attacks as they occur. Each ship captain makes decisions based on the immediate threat. Sophie glanced at Kyle. He kept his expression neutral. I see. And how has that strategy been working? We have suffered significant losses, Zekthar admitted. But we hope that with your reinforcements we can hold the line. We'll do our best, Kyle said diplomatically. After the hologram faded, he turned to Sophie. Get me a full tactical analysis of their fleet disposition. And prepare combat plans for when, not if, the Krell attack. Already working on it, sir. The Krell came 6 hours later. The Valiant sensors picked them up first. dozens of bioships dropping out of faster-than-light travel in a coordinated wave. They looked organic because they were living vessels grown and shaped by Krell technology. Acid cannons charged along their flanks and launch bays opened to release swarms of smaller attack craft. The Council fleet immediately began breaking formation. Ships scattered in different directions, each captain choosing their own response to the threat. Within seconds, the defensive line collapsed into chaos. "All human vessels, this is Valiant Actual," Kyle said calmly into the fleet channel. "Execute defensive pattern Sierra Mark." The 4 human warships moved as one. They formed a sphere, each vessel positioned to cover the others. Weapon batteries tracked incoming targets with mechanical precision. Point defense systems activated, creating overlapping fields of fire. The Krell bioships crashed into the human formation like a wave hitting a rock. The difference was immediate and shocking. Where Council ships dodged and weaved, trying to escape, the human vessels stood their ground. Where Council weapons fired sporadically, human batteries unleashed coordinated volleys. Sophie called out targets with rapid efficiency. "Hostile Group Alpha bearing 270, range 3,000 kilometers. Firing solution locked." "Fire," Kyle ordered. The Valiant's main railguns spoke, accelerating slugs of tungsten to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles tore through 2 Krell bioships, rupturing their organic hulls. Atmosphere vented into space, freezing instantly. Group Beta closing on the Havoc. "Intercepting," Greg Newman reported from the Relentless. His ship pivoted with surprising grace for something so large, bringing its broadside to bear. Missile tubes opened and released a spread of smart munitions that hunted the Krell attack craft like predators. Aboard the Havoc, alarms blared as a Krell boarding pod latched onto the hull. Captain Lisa Martin, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion, watched the hull breach warning with calm eyes. "SEAL Sections 7 through 12. Marine Squad 3, repel boarders." The Krell warriors that cut through the hull found human Marines waiting. Unlike Council security forces, which relied on stunning weapons and restraint tactics, the Marines carried kinetic rifles and explosive charges. They had trained for boarding actions in facilities designed to simulate worst-case scenarios. The fight was brief and brutal. The Krell were strong, fast, and equipped with natural weapons that could tear through light armor. But the Marines moved as a unit, covering each other's positions and maintaining disciplined fire. When the last Krell warrior fell, the squad leader reported in with a casual tone that made Zekthar, monitoring from his command ship, feel a chill despite having no body temperature. "Boarders eliminated. Sealing breach now. Havoc is combat ready." The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, 17 Krell bioships drifted dead in space. The human fleet had taken damage but no losses. The Council fleet, despite suffering 3 destroyed vessels, considered it a victory because they usually lost far more. Zekthar requested a private channel with Kyle after the engagement. His crystalline form appeared in the commander's ready room, light patterns shifting through colors that Kyle couldn't interpret. "Your people fought with remarkable efficiency," the liaison said carefully. "We did what we were trained to do." "Yes, but..." Zekthar paused. "I monitored your crew during the battle. Several of your tactical officers were smiling. Some of your Marines seemed almost enthusiastic about the boarding action." Kyle set down his coffee cup slowly. "And that bothers you?" "It disturbs me greatly. Combat should be a last resort, something to be endured with regret. Your people seem to embrace it." "You asked us here because we're good at fighting," Kyle said quietly. "Did you think we developed that skill through reluctance? Humanity has been at war for our entire recorded history. We've fought each other. We've fought our environment. We've fought every challenge our world threw at us. Yes, we're good at it. Yes, some of us find satisfaction in doing something we excel at. That doesn't mean we're monsters, doesn't it?" Kyle stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "Let me tell you about a human named Danny Price. He's an ensign on this ship, fresh out of the academy. During the battle, he was the one smiling at his console. Do you know why? Because he was terrified, and smiling was how he dealt with his fear. Because he successfully protected his crewmates, and that felt good. Because he's barely 20 years old and he's still learning how to process adrenaline and stress." He turned back to Zekthar. "You see enthusiasm and think we love violence. We see people doing a difficult job well and taking pride in protecting others. There's a difference. And the Marines, the ones who killed those Krell warriors, They did what was necessary to protect the havoc. Would you have preferred they hesitated? That they died because they were too civilized to fight effectively? Zekthar's lights dimmed. No, I would not. We're here because you need us, Kyle continued. Because the Krell are winning and your forces aren't equipped to stop them. You can judge us for being good at war, or you can accept that being good at something terrible sometimes means you're the only ones who can stop something worse. After Zekthar left, Sophie entered the ready room. The Council fleet wants to reform around our position. They're asking us to take point in the next engagement. Of course they are, Kyle said. We just proved we can do what they can't. That's going to change their perception of us. For better or worse. Both, probably. They'll be grateful and terrified in equal measure. Sophie sat down across from him. Sir, do you think we're monsters? Like he said? Kyle considered the question carefully. I think we're a species that got very good at survival through any means necessary. I think we developed weapons and tactics because the alternative was extinction. I think we carry that legacy in our DNA and our culture. Does that make us monsters? Maybe. But if being a monster means I can protect the people on this ship and save a few billion civilians from the Krell, then I'll accept that label. The next day, reports of the human victory spread through Council space. Military analysts reviewed the battle footage in detail, noting the coordination, the efficiency, the ruthless effectiveness of human tactics. Civilian populations felt both relief and renewed concern. Their saviors had arrived, but those saviors were exactly as dangerous as everyone feared. On Earth, news networks broadcast the battle footage with pride. Humanity had finally proven itself to the galactic community. They had shown that humans belonged among the stars. What they didn't show, what the edited footage couldn't capture, was the cost. Kyle sat alone in his quarters that night, reviewing casualty reports. 12 crew members injured, 2 seriously. The Ironclad had lost 3 personnel when a Krell acid blast penetrated their armor. They were the first human deaths in the war, but Kyle knew they wouldn't be the last. He typed messages to 3 families back on Earth, trying to find words that would make sense of their loss. The galaxy had asked for soldiers. Earth had sent them. Now those soldiers were paying the price. 3 months had passed since the first engagement. The human fleet, now expanded to 8 warships, had pushed the Krell back across 4 sectors. Every battle followed the same pattern. The Krell attacked with overwhelming force, and the humans responded with overwhelming skill. Captain Laura Jensen commanded the EDF Striker, a fast attack cruiser designed for hunting raiders. Her crew had developed a reputation for finding and destroying Krell supply ships before they could reach the front lines. Today, they had cornered a Krell biofrigate near a gas giant's rings. Target is trying to hide in the debris field, Lieutenant Harry Cole reported from sensors. They're venting atmosphere. Could be damage or a trick. Assume it's a trick until proven otherwise, Laura said. All weapons ready. Close to firing range, but stay alert. The Striker moved through the ice and rock of the ring system, its sensors cutting through the interference. The Krell ship appeared suddenly, launching a desperate volley of acid torpedoes. But the Striker's point defense was ready, destroying the incoming weapons before they could connect. Return fire, Laura ordered. Disable only. I want prisoners if possible. The Striker's weapons carved precise wounds in the biofrigate's hull, targeting propulsion and weapon systems while avoiding the crew sections. Within minutes, the Krell ship was drifting helplessly. They're launching escape pods, Harry reported. Laura nodded. Recover them. Carefully. The Council observer aboard the Striker, a Mindari named Telvan, watched this exchange with growing confusion. His telepathic abilities let him sense Laura's emotions during the battle: focus, determination, and controlled aggression. But now he felt something else. Concern. Almost compassion. The Krell survivors, 6 warriors in bulky environmental suits, were brought aboard and placed in the secure holding area. Medical staff treated their injuries despite protest from some crew members, who felt the enemy didn't deserve such consideration. Telvan joined Laura as she visited the holding area. Through the transparent barrier, they could see the Krell warriors. They were insectoid creatures, their compound eyes reflecting the light in strange patterns. One of them approached the barrier, its translator device clicking to life. You fight with such hatred, it said. Such violence. Why do you spare us now? Laura met its gaze steadily. Because you're not fighting anymore. You're prisoners of war. There are rules about how to treat prisoners. Rules? The Krell seemed genuinely confused. We are enemies. Your species and ours are at war. That doesn't mean I can torture you or kill you unnecessarily. That's not how this works. The Krell warrior was silent for a long moment. Finally it said, "We do not understand your kind. You are efficient killers, but you show mercy. You fight with precision, but you follow restrictions. You are contradictions." After they left the holding area, Telvan spoke to Laura privately. "I cannot reconcile what I witnessed. During the battle you were ruthless. You destroyed their ship without hesitation, but now you treat them with care, even kindness. How do you maintain both attitudes?" Laura considered her answer. "They're not contradictions. They're different responses to different situations. During the battle, they were enemy combatants trying to kill us. I responded with appropriate force. Now they're helpless prisoners. I respond with appropriate care. The situation changed, so my behavior changed. That's called discipline. But your species' reputation suggests you enjoy violence." "Some of us do," Laura admitted. "Some of us are good at it and take pride in that skill. But taking pride in being good at something doesn't mean we don't understand when to stop. A surgeon takes pride in their skill with a scalpel, but they don't cut people randomly. They cut when and where it's necessary to heal. We fight when and where it's necessary to protect. The skill is the same. The ethics are what matter." Meanwhile, Commander Kyle Mitchell faced a different crisis. Intelligence reports indicated the Krell were massing for a major counteroffensive. They planned to strike at Varan Prime itself, attempting to destroy Council headquarters in a single devastating blow. The strategic briefing included military leaders from 6 different species. Council Admiral Torvan presented the intelligence. The Krell are staging their fleet in orbit around this world. He highlighted a planet on the display. "If we strike now, we can destroy their forces before they launch the attack." "What's the recommended approach?" Kyle asked. "Fusion weapons. Multiple simultaneous strikes. Eliminate their entire fleet in one engagement." Kyle studied the tactical display. "What's on that planet?" "It is a Krell breeding colony. Primarily civilian population." "How many civilians?" Torvan's expression shifted uncomfortably. "Approximately 40 million. The room fell silent. Kyle looked at the other human officers present. Sophie Brooks, Greg Newman, and Admiral Patricia Hughes, who had arrived from Earth 2 weeks earlier to oversee operations. Their faces showed the same calculation he was making. "No," Kyle said finally. "Commander?" Torvan sounded surprised. "We're not going to kill 40 million civilians to destroy a military target. That's not acceptable." "But this is war," the Council Admiral protested. "This is an opportunity to strike a decisive blow. Your species understands total war better than any of us. You must see the strategic value. We understand total war." Admiral Patricia Hughes said coldly, "That's exactly why we won't do this. We've seen what happens when militaries stop distinguishing between combatants and civilians. We've lived through the consequences." The answer is no. Thelnara, attending the briefing via hologram, spoke up. "The Krell would not hesitate to kill our civilians. They have killed billions already. Why should we show them mercy they would never show us?" Kyle turned to face her directly. "Because we're not them. Because winning this war by becoming like them isn't really winning. Because if we murder 40 million civilians in cold blood, we become the monsters you originally feared we were." "Then what do you propose?" Torvan demanded. "The Krell will launch their attack within days. We must act." "Give us 72 hours, Sophie Brooks said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Give us 3 days to develop an alternative strategy. If we can't find another way, we'll reconsider." Kyle nodded. "Agreed, but I'm not reconsidering. We'll find another way." For 3 days, Sophie and her team worked without rest. They reviewed every piece of intelligence, every tactical analysis, every detail about the Krell fleet and its position. Slowly, an alternative plan emerged. "We can't destroy the fleet without hitting the planet," Sophie explained to Kyle. "The orbital dynamics don't allow it. But we can cripple their command structure. The Krell rely on centralized control from their flagship. If we take out that ship, the rest of their fleet will fall into disarray." "That means getting close," Greg Newman observed. "Really close. Through their entire defensive perimeter." "Yes," Sophie agreed. "It's risky. We'll take casualties. But it's possible." Kyle studied the plan. It was dangerous, bordering on reckless. They would lose ships, possibly several. The human death toll could be significant, but it wouldn't kill 40 million civilians. We do it, he said. The operation launched on the fourth day. 6 human warships, led by the Valiant, accelerated to maximum speed toward the Krell staging area. They didn't try to hide their approach. Instead, they broadcast on all frequencies, challenging the Krell to meet them in open battle. The Krell took the bait. Their fleet moved away from the planet to engage the humans, exactly as Sophie had predicted. The moment they were clear of the civilian population center, the real attack began. 2 more human ships hidden in the system's outer asteroid belt struck the Krell flagship from behind. Simultaneously, the Valiant and her companions hit from the front. The Krell command vessel, caught between 2 forces, took devastating damage. But the Krell fought back savagely. The destroyer Defiant took a direct hit from an acid beam, its hull rupturing. The ironclad, already damaged from previous engagements, suffered catastrophic systems failure. Escape pods launched as the ship began breaking apart. Kyle watched from the Valiant's bridge as the ironclad died. Over 300 crew members were aboard. Most made it to the pods, but the casualty reports showed 73 confirmed deaths. 73 people who had followed him into this fight. The Krell flagship exploded. Without its command structure, the enemy fleet fell into chaos exactly as predicted. The remaining Krell ships retreated in disorder. The strategic victory was complete, but Kyle felt no triumph as he read the names of the dead. Each one was someone's child, someone's friend, someone's loved one. Each one had trusted him to lead them well. Thelnara contacted him after the battle. You sacrificed your own people to spare the enemy's civilians. I do not understand this choice. We're not fighting to exterminate the Krell, Kyle said quietly. We're fighting to stop their invasion. There's a difference. When this war ends, the galaxy will still need to coexist with them. If we commit genocide, even justified genocide, we become something we can't come back from. Your people are mourning their losses. Of course we are. Every death in war is a tragedy, even when it's necessary. Especially when it's necessary. You could have avoided those deaths by using fusion weapons. At the cost of 40 million lives? No, some prices are too high. That's not weakness. That's wisdom bought through terrible experience. 6 months into the campaign, everything changed. The message arrived through neutral intermediaries, species that maintained diplomatic relations with both sides. The Krell Queen Mind, supreme leader of the swarm, was willing to negotiate. The council received the news with celebration. After months of brutal warfare and devastating losses, peace seemed within reach. Emergency sessions were called. Diplomats who had spent the war in shelters emerged to begin preliminary discussions. But in the human fleet, the response was more cautious. Kyle sat in the briefing room with his senior officers reviewing the Krell message for the 5th time. It feels wrong, Captain Laura Jensen said. Everything we know about Krell culture says they don't negotiate. Dominance is their entire worldview. Surrender is literally incomprehensible to them. Maybe they've learned that dominance has limits, Sophie Brooks suggested. We've defeated them in every major engagement. Maybe they're adapting. Greg Newman shook his head. Adapting their tactics, sure. But their fundamental psychology, that doesn't change in 6 months. Admiral Patricia Hughes had been quiet during the discussion, studying reports on her datapad. Finally, she looked up. I've been analyzing their tactical patterns over the last month. There's something odd. Their attacks have become less coordinated, almost scattered. Like they're keeping us busy rather than trying to win. Kyle felt cold certainty settle in his stomach. They're buying time. For what? Laura asked. For whatever comes next. This peace offer is a distraction. They're planning something. Sophie pulled up a star map highlighting Krell movements over the past weeks. If I were planning a decapitation strike, I'd want my enemy relaxed, off guard, focused on something other than military readiness. Like peace negotiations, Varen Prime, Kyle said suddenly. The preliminary talks are being held at council headquarters. If the Krell can strike there during negotiations, they destroy the leadership of every council species in one attack. Admiral Hughes nodded slowly. It's what I would do. Brutal, efficient, and it would leave the council in complete chaos. The problem was convincing the council itself. Kyle requested an emergency meeting with the military leadership. Thelnara attended, along with several other high-ranking officials. They listened to his concerns with visible skepticism. You believe this is a trap based on intuition? Councillor Vex asked. We have an opportunity for peace, and you want us to reject it because you have a feeling? Not intuition, Kyle corrected. Analysis. Pattern recognition. The Krell behavior doesn't match their psychology. They're acting out of character in ways that suggest deception. Perhaps they have simply recognized they cannot win. Telnara suggested hopefully. Perhaps your victories have shown them the futility of continued warfare. That would be rational, Admiral Hughes said. But the Krell aren't primarily rational. They're instinctive. Everything we know about their society says retreat and negotiation go against their fundamental nature. Then perhaps we do not know them as well as we believe, Vex replied. I appreciate your concerns, but we cannot refuse peace talks based on speculation. The diplomatic meetings will proceed. Kyle tried a different approach. Then let us position our forces defensively. Station the human fleet near Viren Prime during the negotiations. If we're wrong, we lose nothing. If we're right, we might save billions of lives. After significant debate, the Council agreed to this compromise. The human warships would maintain a defensive perimeter during the peace talks, officially to provide security, but in reality to counter a potential attack. The negotiations began 3 days later. Krell representatives arrived aboard a diplomatic vessel, escorted by Council ships. The initial meetings seemed promising. The Krell appeared willing to discuss territorial boundaries and resource allocation. Kyle watched from the Valiant's bridge, positioned in high orbit above Viren Prime. His entire fleet was at battle stations, hidden behind a posture of routine security patrol. The crews knew something was wrong, even if they couldn't articulate what. How long do we wait? Sophie asked quietly. Until they make their move or until I'm proven paranoid, Kyle replied. Either way, we stay ready. The attack came during the 3rd day of negotiations. Krell bioships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in close orbit, bypassing the outer defenses entirely. They had been hiding in a neighboring system, waiting for exactly the right moment. But Kyle had been waiting too. The moment the Krell appeared, human ships moved to intercept. The response was so immediate, so coordinated, that several Krell vessels were destroyed before they could even acquire targets. All ships, execute defensive pattern Omega, Kyle ordered calmly. Protect the station at all costs. The battle was chaos. Krell ships attempted to overwhelm the defense through sheer numbers, launching wave after wave of attack craft. The orbital station's shields flared under sustained bombardment. Council ships caught off guard struggled to respond, but the human fleet had prepared for exactly this scenario. They moved with practiced efficiency, forming a defensive shell around Viren Prime. Every Krell ship that tried to break through met overwhelming firepower. Lieutenant Sophie Brooks coordinated the defense with brilliant precision. She tracked hundreds of targets simultaneously, prioritizing threats and directing fire to maximum effect. Her tactical display showed the battle as a complex 3-dimensional chess game, and she was winning. Krell flagship entering firing range. Harry Cole reported from the Striker. They're targeting the station directly. Relentless havoc. Concentrate fire on that flagship, Kyle ordered. Valiant will cover your approach. The 2 warships accelerated toward the Krell command vessel, their weapons blazing. The flagship was massive, easily 3 times the size of any human ship, its bioarmor thick enough to withstand tremendous punishment. But sustained fire from 2 warships found weak points, and slowly the Krell flagship began to die. Inside the station, diplomats and officials evacuated to secure bunkers. The Mindari observers, monitoring the battle telepathically, felt the focused intensity of the human crews. There was no panic, no confusion, just disciplined execution of practiced procedures. When the Krell flagship exploded, the remaining enemy ships lost coordination. Some continued fighting, others tried to escape. The human fleet methodically eliminated them all, showing no mercy to vessels that had come to perpetrate what would have been the largest massacre in galactic history. The battle lasted 90 minutes. When it ended, debris from 47 Krell ships orbited Viren Prime. The human fleet had suffered damage but no losses. The station was intact, its population safe. Kyle opened a direct communication channel to the Krell homeworld, specifically targeting the Queen Mine's fortress. This is Commander Kyle Mitchell of Earth. You attempted to use peace as a weapon. You tried to murder diplomats under the flag of negotiation. These are war crimes by any definition. We will not make that mistake again. He paused, letting his words sink in. But we're also not going to exterminate your species. We're not going to invade your worlds or slaughter your civilians. We're going to end this war, but we'll do it the right way. He outlined terms: immediate Krell withdrawal to their original borders, monitored demilitarization, diplomatic oversight, and in exchange, guaranteed sovereignty and assistance transitioning to sustainable resource acquisition. The alternative was continued warfare that the Krell could not win. You have 48 hours to respond, Kyle finished. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. The bridge crew sat in silence for a moment, processing what had just occurred. They had prevented a catastrophe, but at the cost of any chance for genuine peace negotiations. Do you think they'll accept? Sophie asked. They have to, Kyle said. They've seen what we can do. They've seen that we predicted their strategy and countered it perfectly. They know they can't win through deception or force. Acceptance is their only option. Admiral Hughes joined them on the bridge. The Council is requesting a meeting. They want to understand how we knew. We didn't know, Kyle admitted. We suspected. We understood the Krell better than the Council did because we understand warfare better. We know all the tricks, all the deceptions, all the ugly strategies because we've used them ourselves at various points in our history. That's what scares them, Sophie observed. Not that we're good at fighting, that we understand every aspect of war, including the dishonest parts. Laura Jensen's voice came over the communication channel. Stryker here. We're picking up a transmission from the Krell home world. They're accepting the terms. The bridge erupted in quiet celebration. The war was over. Humanity had won not through overwhelming force but through understanding the enemy better than they understood themselves. But Kyle felt no triumph. He thought about the Krell warriors who had died in the failed attack, following orders from leadership that had sent them into a trap. He thought about the months of warfare, the thousands dead on both sides, the devastation inflicted across dozens of worlds. Victory, he said quietly to Admiral Hughes. It feels hollow. That's because you understand the cost, she replied. Real leaders always do. The ones who celebrate victory too enthusiastically are the ones who don't comprehend what was lost to achieve it. That night, the Council held a grand ceremony honoring the human forces. Every crew member received. The ceremony took place in the Grand Hall of Varen Prime's orbital station. Thousands attended in person with billions more watching across Council space. Kyle stood on the stage alongside Admiral Patricia Hughes, Sophie Brooks, Greg Newman, Laura Jensen, and representatives from every human ship that had participated in the war. Ambassador Thel Nara delivered the formal address. Her words praised human courage, tactical excellence, and selfless sacrifice. She spoke of humanity's role in saving the Council from extinction, and announced that Earth's application for membership would be immediately approved with unanimous support. The crowd applauded. Medals were distributed. Official proclamations were made. It was everything humanity had wanted for 15 years, finally granted in recognition of their service. But Kyle couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He noticed how some delegates kept their distance, how conversations would pause when humans approached, how certain species looked at them with expressions that mixed gratitude with something darker. After the ceremony, Kyle gathered his senior officers in a private room. Did any of you feel that? You mean the fear? Laura said bluntly. Yes, they're grateful we saved them, but they're also terrified of what we represent. Sophie nodded. We confirmed every concern they had about humanity. We showed up, fought their war with efficiency that shocked them, predicted enemy strategies they couldn't see, and used restraint they didn't expect. We're not what they thought we were, but we're also exactly what they thought we were. We're a paradox to them, Greg added. Too violent to trust, too honorable to condemn. They don't know how to process that. Admiral Hughes had been quiet, but now she spoke. They'll learn. It will take time, but they'll come to understand that strength and ethics aren't opposites. That being good at violence doesn't mean you're evil. That sometimes the most dangerous people are the safest ones because they understand the consequences of their actions. And if they don't learn, Kyle asked, then we keep showing them. Through actions, not words. We integrate into their society. Prove ourselves as citizens and not just soldiers. Demonstrate that humans can contribute more than military skill. The days following the ceremony were strange. Human crew members began receiving requests from Council military academies. Species that had previously avoided Earth suddenly wanted to study human tactical doctrine, learn human training methods, understand human military ethics. Kyle found himself giving lectures to council officers about proportional response, rules of engagement, and the laws of warfare, concepts that humanity had developed through thousands of years of bitter experience were now being taught to species that had barely fought at all. During one session, a young Varani officer asked a question that cut to the heart of the matter. How do you maintain morality during warfare? How do you remember to show mercy when your training emphasizes efficiency in killing? Kyle thought carefully before answering. Because efficiency and morality aren't opposites. Being good at warfare means understanding all its aspects, including ethics. An undisciplined army that commits atrocities is actually less effective than a disciplined one that follows rules. Soldiers who murder civilians create more enemies. Soldiers who respect boundaries and show mercy create possibilities for peace. But during battle, when emotions run high, that's what training is for. We drill these concepts into our people until they're instinctive. A properly trained soldier knows when to shoot and when to stop shooting. They know the difference between an enemy combatant and a civilian. They know how to treat prisoners. These aren't luxuries you add to military training. They're fundamental parts of being an effective fighting force. The Varani officer seemed unconvinced, but you must admit your people have a natural capacity for violence that other species lack. Maybe, Kyle conceded. Or maybe we just had more practice. Earth was a harsh planet. Human civilization developed through constant struggle. We fought nature, we fought each other, we fought for every advancement. That history shaped us. But it also taught us lessons. Hard lessons paid for in blood and suffering. We're sharing those lessons so you don't have to learn them the same way we did. Meanwhile, other humans integrated into council society in different ways. Laura Jensen accepted a position training Joint Council Human Patrol Units. Sophie Brooks began teaching at the new Interspecies Military Academy. Engineers from the human fleet shared their ship design principles with council shipyards. And slowly, grudgingly, the Krell began their transformation. The peace terms required monitored demilitarization and diplomatic oversight. Human observers stationed on Krell worlds reported surprising developments. Freed from constant warfare, Krell society began to diversify. Art appeared, crude at first but growing more sophisticated. Scientific research expanded beyond military applications. Young Krell who had never known the war years approached human observers with questions about Earth culture, human history, and how species could coexist peacefully. One incident particularly struck Kyle. A Krell juvenile, barely mature by their species standards, approached Lieutenant Danny Price during an inspection tour. The young human had been one of the crew members who smiled during that first battle, something that had disturbed Zekthar months ago. You fought my parent warrior during the defense of Aaron Prime, the Krell said through its translator. My parent warrior died in that battle. I should hate you, Danny tensed, unsure how to respond. I'm sorry for your loss. But you were following orders as my parent warrior was. You were protecting others as my parent warrior would have wanted to do. I have been learning about human concepts of honor in warfare. I think I understand now. You did what was necessary without being cruel about it. That is warrior honor, yes? Yes, Danny said quietly. That's exactly what it is. The juvenile Krell made a gesture that human observers had learned indicated respect. When I am grown, I wish to learn more about this honor. Perhaps I will join the joint patrols. Perhaps I will help prevent future wars instead of fighting them. After the Krell left, Danny sat down heavily. He was shaking slightly. Kyle, who had observed the exchange, approached him. You all right, Ensign? Sir, that Krell's parent might have been one of the warriors I killed during the battle. I was manning point defense. I shot down dozens of their attack craft, and now their child wants to learn from us. How do I process that? Kyle sat beside him. You remember that war is terrible even when necessary. You honor the dead on both sides by working toward peace. You teach the next generation so they don't have to repeat our mistakes. That's how you process it. Does it ever get easier? No, it shouldn't. The day killing becomes easy is the day we become the monsters everyone feared we were. 2 years after the war ended, Kyle stood in the memorial garden on Varen Prime. 347 names were etched into earth granite, representing every human who died during the campaign. The garden was maintained by council volunteers who had taken it upon themselves to honor the fallen. Felnara joined him there. The ambassador had changed during the war, had learned things about warfare and peace that her species had never needed to understand before. Do you regret answering our call? She asked. Every day, Kyle admitted. Those people died fighting someone else's war. They died protecting civilians they'd never met, defending worlds they'd never seen. That weight doesn't get lighter with time. But billions live because of their sacrifice. That doesn't make them less dead. War always has a cost. Victory doesn't erase that cost, it just determines who pays it. Thelnara was silent for a moment. We judged your species harshly. We saw your capacity for violence and assumed you were monsters. We were wrong, were you? Kyle challenged. We are dangerous. We are very good at warfare. Everything you feared about us was true. But you chose how to use that danger. You chose to protect rather than conquer. You chose restraint when overwhelming force was available. You chose to teach rather than dominate. Being capable of monstrous things doesn't make you a monster. It's the choices you make that define you. Kyle touched one of the names on the memorial, a young woman who had served under him on the Valiant. She had been 23 when she died, had wanted to be an engineer, had sent messages home about the beautiful alien stars. Now she was just a name on a monument. The galaxy asked for soldiers, he said quietly. We sent people who understood war well enough to hate it. People who could fight when necessary but knew the true cost of fighting. People who were good at the worst thing imaginable and chose to use that skill to protect others. I guess that's the real lesson. What lesson? That monsters are defined by their choices. We could have responded to your call with conquest. We could have used our military power to dominate the council. We could have become the very threat you originally feared. But we didn't. We chose to be guardians instead of tyrants. That's what makes the difference. Thelnara looked at the memorial, at the names of the dead, at the flowers that council citizens left there every day. Your people saved us, but perhaps more importantly, they taught us. They showed us that peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence, but the choice not to use it unnecessarily. That true strength lies in restraint. That civilization is measured not by how well you avoid conflict. 5 years had passed since the end of the Krell War. Kyle Mitchell stood in his small apartment on Luna Station, preparing for another day at the Galactic Council's Military Ethics Committee. He had left active service 3 years ago, accepting a civilian position that felt more important than commanding warships. The morning news feed showed images from across Council space. A joint human Krell patrol had successfully intercepted pirates near the Outer Rim. A new military academy was opening on the Virani homeworld, with human instructors teaching alongside local educators. The Council Assembly was debating a proposal to establish unified rules of warfare that all member species would follow. Kyle's communication terminal chimed. It was Zekthar, the crystalline liaison who had once been disturbed by human soldiers smiling during combat. They had developed an unlikely friendship over the years, bonded by shared experiences and mutual respect. Good morning, Commander Mitchell, Zekthar's hologram said. He still used Kyle's old rank despite the retirement. Just Kyle now. What can I do for you? I am reviewing the new training protocols we discussed. I wanted your opinion on the section regarding protection of civilians during urban warfare. The concepts are clear, but I want to ensure we are teaching them correctly. They spent an hour discussing the protocols, comparing human experience with council needs. It was work Kyle found far more satisfying than combat, though far less recognized. No one gave medals for preventing wars or teaching restraint, but he had learned that preventing violence was harder and more important than excelling at it. Later that day, Kyle met with former crew members at a cafe that had become their unofficial gathering place. Laura Jensen was there, looking tired but content. She had spent the last month on a Krell world, training their first generation of peacekeeping forces. How are they progressing? Kyle asked. Better than expected, Laura said. The cultural shift has been dramatic. Krell who grew up during the war struggle with concepts of proportional force, but the younger generation gets it naturally. I had a student last week who questioned an order during a training exercise because it would have endangered simulated civilians. 5 years ago, no Krell would have even considered that. Sophie Brooks joined them, carrying data pads filled with curriculum materials. She taught at the Interspecies Military Academy now, developing courses on tactical ethics and strategic restraint. We have students from 14 different species this year. Everyone wants to learn from human military doctrine. Does that bother you? Laura asked. That we're teaching the galaxy how to fight more effectively? Sophie considered the question. It would if that's all we were teaching. But we're not just showing them how to fight. We're showing them why not to fight, when to stop fighting, How to fight without becoming monsters in the process. That's the important part. Greg Newman arrived last, fresh from a diplomatic mission to a border dispute. He had surprised everyone by transitioning from military command to diplomatic service. But his combat experience gave him credibility that traditional diplomats lacked. How did the negotiations go? Kyle asked. Successfully. 2 species were ready to go to war over a resource-rich asteroid belt. I helped them understand that fighting over resources costs more than sharing them. Showed them casualty projections, economic impact studies, long-term consequences. They agreed to joint development instead of conflict. You used fear of war to prevent war, Laura observed. I used understanding of war to prevent war, Greg corrected. There's a difference. I didn't threaten them. I just helped them see clearly what the alternative to peace actually looks like. Sometimes people need someone who has been through combat to explain why combat should be avoided. Their conversation was interrupted by a news alert. Admiral Patricia Hughes was giving a speech at the Council Assembly, proposing an expansion of the joint military training programs. They watched on a public screen as the elderly admiral addressed the gathered representatives. 5 years ago, this council faced extinction. Patricia said, "You called on humanity for help and we answered. But the real victory was not military. It was educational. We showed you that being prepared for war is not the same as wanting war. That training effective soldiers requires teaching them when not to fight. That true strength includes the wisdom to choose peace." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "Some of you still fear humanity. You see our capacity for violence and worry about our intentions. I understand that fear. But I ask you to judge us not by our capabilities but by our choices. We could have used our military power to dominate this council. We could have demanded territory, resources, or political control as payment for our assistance. We did none of those things. Instead, we have spent 5 years teaching you how to defend yourselves so you never need to depend on us again." The speech continued, but Kyle stopped watching. He had heard similar words from Patricia before, had said similar things himself. The message was always the same. Humanity was dangerous, but that danger could serve as protection rather than threat. Danny Price, the young ensign who had smiled during that first battle, approached their table. He was older now, more mature, wearing the uniform of an instructor at the military academy. "Sir, I wanted to thank you," Danny said to Kyle, "for what you said to me that day when I met the Krell whose parent I might have killed, about honoring the dead by working toward peace. I think about that every time I teach a class. I'm trying to make sure the next generation doesn't have to face what we did." "How are your students?" Kyle asked, eager, sometimes too eager. "I have to remind them that being good at warfare doesn't mean you should be eager to use those skills. That's a hard lesson for young soldiers to learn." "It's a hard lesson for everyone," Laura said. "I still struggle with it sometimes. Part of me misses the clarity of combat, the sense of purpose. Peace is messier, more complicated, less satisfying in some ways." Sophie nodded. "But it's worth it. Every student I teach who learns to value restraint is a potential war prevented. Every officer who understands rules of engagement is protection for countless civilians. We're planting seeds that might not bear fruit for decades, but that's how real change happens." That evening, Kyle attended a ceremony at the Memorial Garden. It had become tradition to gather there on the anniversary of the war's end, honoring those who had fallen. The crowd was larger this year, including many non-humans who had come to respect what the human sacrifice meant. A young Krell approached Kyle as he stood before the granite memorial. This was Chikara, one of the warriors Laura had captured and spared during the war. Chikara had become a symbol of the new Krell generation, dedicating their life to peacekeeping and reconciliation. "Commander Mitchell, I wanted to tell you something," Chikara said through their translator. "My children are learning human philosophy in school. They are learning concepts like mercy and restraint and proportional response. These are not Krell concepts, but they are becoming Krell concepts because you taught us." "I'm glad," Kyle said sincerely. "But I wonder something. Does it bother you that you are teaching potential enemies how to fight more effectively? If there is another war someday, the Krell will use what you taught us." Kyle had thought about this question many times. Yes, that's a risk. But I believe in teaching these principles because they make war less likely, not more. A Krell who understands restraint is less likely to start a war. A Krell who values civilian protection is less likely to commit atrocities. Teaching you how to fight ethically makes everyone safer, including us. Chikara made the gesture of respect. You are strange beings, you humans. You prepare for war while hoping you never have to fight. You excel at violence while teaching peace. You are warriors who dream of a world where warriors are not needed. That's exactly right, Kyle said. That's the paradox of humanity. We're very good at something we wish didn't exist. As the ceremony concluded, Kyle walked back through the station corridors. The walls displayed images from across council space. Human-designed defensive systems protecting peaceful colonies, joint patrol fleets with mixed crews. The new council military academy where instructors from 12 species taught students from 24 more. In his apartment, Kyle opened his journal, the same one he had kept throughout the war. He had made a final entry years ago, but tonight he felt compelled to add more. 5 years after the war, and I still don't know if we made the right choice. We saved billions of lives. We stopped the Krell invasion. We taught the Council how to defend themselves. But we also showed the galaxy exactly how dangerous humanity can be. We confirmed every fear they had about us while simultaneously proving we were more than those fears. I see human influence everywhere now. Our tactical doctrines, our training methods, our ethical frameworks. We're shaping galactic military culture in our image. That's a heavy responsibility. What if we're wrong? What if the principles we teach, born from thousands of years of human warfare, don't apply to alien species? What if we're creating something dangerous while thinking we're spreading wisdom? But then I talk to people like Chikara. I see former enemies becoming friends. I watch students struggle with moral questions about warfare, taking seriously the weight of command and the responsibility of violence. I see young Krell who grew